Hey, what's up guys? My name's Jason. I'm a photographer, videographer based in San Francisco, California. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a rundown, a basic crash course on low light filmmaking. So if you guys are ready, let's jump right into the video. So without overcomplicating this, there are basically 4 things that you want to keep in mind, 4 best practices when you're out in the field running and gunning at low light. The first 3 things you want to keep in mind are synergistic. They work together and they play off of each other. And that would be your exposure triangle, your ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. So for me, I'm always trying to achieve a cinematic look. And for that, I try to keep things, by the book. So before even going out, I already know I want to shoot at 24 frames per second at 4K resolution in S-Log3. So those factors are going to be very important in determining my exposure triangle. Because I'm shooting in S-Log3, which allows for greater dynamic range and more flexibility in post-production when you're color grading, I try to keep my ISO at the base ISO for my camera. So I'm shooting on the SONY A7CII Mark II, and in S-Log3, it has 2 base ISOs when you're shooting in S-Log3. So that would be ISO 800 or ISO 3200. For me, the best results are always going to be with the lower base ISO, which is ISO 800. With ISO 800 at my camera's base ISO for S-Log3, I'm going to be getting the best dynamic range possible, decreasing the amount of noise as much as possible, and just achieving the best possible image quality with that setting. Now, if you're in a really dark situation and you want to bump up your ISO to like 3200 or above, at that point, again, you're going to be introducing noise, which is going to make your footage a lot more grainy and it's not going to be as pleasing to the eye. So as much as possible, guys, stick to your camera's base ISO. If you don't know what that is, just Google your camera's base ISO and it's going to tell you what it is. Moving on to shutter speed, it's pretty easy to understand. Basically, you always want to be shooting at double your camera's frame rate. So if I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, double that would be 48. Because Sony A7CII doesn't have 1/48th of a second, I'm going to be shooting at 1/50th of a second. So pretty straightforward, unless you're doing like slow motion or anything, which I don't. I know I'm going to be shooting at 24 frames per second. I'm going to be keeping my shutter speed at 1/50. And keep in mind, if you are raising or speeding up your shutter speed, you're actually going to be decreasing the amount of light that's going into your camera. So especially for low light, stick to the 180 degree shutter rule, which is basically doubling your camera's frame rate into your shutter speed. So if I were shooting at 30 frames per second out on the field, I would shoot with my shutter speed at 1/60th of a second. Moving on to the third piece of the exposure triangle, and that would be the aperture. As much as possible, if I know I'm going to be going out shooting low light, I'm going to take a fast lens with me. Something that is capable of f1.8 or lower. So for me, I'm shooting on the 35mm Sony f1.4 G Master, and the f1.4 allows you to open up the iris of your lens, enabling a lot more light to come into your camera's sensor. So I always recommend going out in the field with a very fast lens, f1.2, 1.4, 1.8. If you start going 1.8 to 2.8, 3.2, 4.0, if your camera is limited to like a 4.0 aperture, it's going to be a little bit tough achieving a clean image in low light. So if you're heading out at night, bring a fast lens. Moving on to the last piece that you want to keep in mind when you're going out to shoot in low light, the fourth thing, but it probably is the most important thing, is having a light source. So if you're going out in the dark of night and you have no light source, whether that be natural or artificial, there's going to be no contrast. You're literally just going to see pitch black. So what exactly are you going to be shooting? If you're going out and you want to be filming like a model or human subject, if that human subject just has no light at all, what really are you going to be shooting? And a great way to look at it is if you're out shooting in the day and there are absolutely no shadows, no darkness, there's going to be zero contrast. So the same applies kind of in the opposite at night. If you're at night and there's no light, everything's going to be all washed out, all dark. If you're shooting in daytime and there's no shadows, everything's going to be overexposed. Okay, everything's gonna be clipping. The best bet is to find a source of light. Okay, whether that's gonna be from neon lights, from cars, the street lights, store lights, or if you're bringing your own light. This is the only way you're gonna achieve a cinematic and clean look at night. So again, if you're out shooting at night, follow the light. It's as simple as that, guys. And one rookie mistake that I made when I was starting out was when it was nighttime, I felt like I needed to kind of overexpose my shot. So like getting everything in the image. But in reality, you just want to be exposing for your subject. If that's a person, as long as they are lit properly and technically, then you should be good. But if you're exposing every single part of their face where they're all like illuminated, again, everything's gonna be kind of washed out. So at the end of the day, you need to find your style and how you like to shoot. Some people even like a very dark and moody look, which is just exposing for the highlights. And that could be a whole nother video in itself. But I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want to confuse anybody with this video. So again, when you're heading out there, have a correct exposure triangle, shoot at your camera's base ISO. When it comes to shutter speed, follow the 180-degree shutter rule, which is basically doubling your frame rate. So if I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, I'm going to be shooting with a shutter of 1/50. Third, take a fast lens out there, a lens that is capable of anything from f1.8 or lower. And fourth, guys, follow the light. Follow those 4 steps and you should have a great time shooting in low light, and you should no longer be intimidated after watching this video. So thanks so much for watching. Excuse my raspiness in the voice because I actually am sick. I appreciate all your guys' support, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.